58 minutes. That's what's left until the NBA trade deadline comes and goes. The Suns on the board already. Yusuf Nurkic and a 2026 first-round pick out the door. In comes Cody Martin, Vasilije Micic, and a 2026 second-round pick. That, the lone deal that the Phoenix Suns have made here as the trade deadline is less than an hour away. We always thought this was the strongest possibility for the Suns ahead of the trade deadline, was getting out of the Yusuf Nurkic business. He was not playing for them. He did not have a relationship with the coach. They traded for Nick Richards. They were playing Nick Richards. They've been playing Mason Plumlee. They have Oso Ighodaro on the roster. There wasn't a pathway for Yusuf Nurkic to be on this team and have a role moving forward, despite there being a clear need for some more rebounding. Yusuf Nurkic was not getting out of the doghouse. He was not going to play for this team. And so the Suns got themselves out of that business. They had to attach a 2026 first in order to do so. But by getting a second-round pick, it's basically just them moving down a bunch of spots so you don't feel as bad about it. And truthfully, I got no problem with this move. You add a player in Cody Martin who can help add to your rotation. When they're healthy, it's basically a 9-man group at this point. Adding Cody Martin gives Coach Bud another option to that bench, lengthening it a little bit, and giving them a 10th option. Again, Yusuf Nurkic wasn't playing. So a deal that allows me to get out of that money. He's owed $19 million next year. The Suns are off the hook for that. They don't have to worry about that. Helps them somewhat clean up their books. Still above all the aprons, but at least moves them in the right direction. And you didn't have to just give away a pick and not get anything back, right? We thought for the longest time that potentially trading Yusuf Nurkic was going to need them to attach a pick to him and then get nothing back and basically just attach the pick to get out of the money. They got a rotational piece back, and they got a second-round pick, which is basically them just moving down a bunch of spots for a guy who was not playing. So if you have a guy who's not playing and I can replace him with, is Cody Martin going to wow you when he plays next for the Phoenix Suns? No, that's not what Cody Martin's going to bring to the table, but he is a body. He is somebody that is going to draw into this rotation, and we couldn't say that about Yusuf Nurkic anymore. It just wasn't happening. So if the Suns are still going to at least keep the team at present, the core intact, to try to see how this season plays out, adding somebody like a Cody Martin to give Coach Bud another rotational option and to use that roster spot wisely is a fine move with me. And again, the move we thought was going to be the most likely. So we'll see if there's anything else that the Suns do before the trade deadline comes and goes at 1 o'clock. We'll see. You wonder if after last night with Jimmy Butler getting traded and that being the main focus for the Phoenix Suns, if they take a step back, their pivot is, okay, we don't have to worry about this big, huge mega deal. All of our assets are now available to us. Let's work on a Yusuf Nurkic deal, and then we'll call it a deadline. We'll see you tomorrow night when they take on the Utah Jazz. We'll see. We'll see if that's what they do. They still have 54 minutes to get something done before we hit 1 o'clock. There was an encouraging thing from last night's basketball game, at least to me. And I know you're wondering, Chris, how could you possibly say that? Team lost by 31 points. They lost 140 to 109, and you're going to try to convince me that there is something positive to take from last night's basketball game. That is exactly what I'm going to do. Because there was a player last night that when the game was still in the balance, when the Suns were making their push in the first half, and they had a big lead at one point, when I wrote the note down about how well this guy was playing, it was a 50 to 41 lead. They broke out a 9-point lead in the first half. I thought Bradley Beal in the first half was the best player for the Phoenix Suns, and I don't think it was relatively close. I wrote in my notes, Beal is cooking. He just was playing very differently last night. Where has that version of Bradley Beal been for the Phoenix Suns? Am I the only one that noticed that last night? Did it seem different to any of you out there last night, how well Bradley Beal was playing? Playing with some confidence, some swagger, taking the ball to the basket, driving, kicking, making the extra pass with confidence, just playing what felt like his best version of basketball. I hate to make this comparison, but I felt like I was watching the Washington Wizards version of Bradley Beal. And do you want to know why I felt that way? When Bradley Beal started to lead this team on a run, Book was out, Book was sitting down, so it was Beal leading the offense. Again, they didn't have Kevin Durant last night. They went on a nice run to take the lead from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Beal was leading the way. Here was the group that he was sharing the court with for most of that run. It was Beal, it was Royce O'Neal, it was Tyus Jones, it was Richards, it was Allen. Plumlee came in for a little bit. That was the group. Now, no offense to any of those guys. No offense to Royce O'Neal, to Tyus Jones, to Grayson Allen, to Nick Richards. No offense to any of those guys. But none of those guys are superstars that Bradley Beal has to defer to. None of those guys are superstars where Bradley Beal might think for a second, man, I got to get the ball to Kevin Durant. I've got to get the ball to Devin Booker. And there is some level of deferring happening from Bradley Beal. With that group that he shared the floor with last night, there was no Durant. There was no Booker to defer to. It was Bradley Beal at his best. The best version of Bradley Beal in Washington is when it was Bradley Beal and friends. Bradley Beal could be the offense, take the ball, and you go at his pace. And so when you bring him to Phoenix, and now he's dealing with Kevin Durant, and he's dealing with Devin Booker, and he knows, as good as Bradley Beal is, and he's a good basketball player, he's not Devin Booker. He is not Kevin Durant. And so you defer a little bit. Not last night. There was nobody that he needed to defer to last night. He could play Washington Wizards Bradley Beal basketball. And that's why the Suns were able to go on that run and take the lead and ultimately have a lead going into the second half because of how well Bradley Beal played last night. So that's encouraging. Here's the question that I have coming out of that. How do the Suns get that version more often? What do they have to do for us to see that version of Bradley Beal? Because let me be honest with you, everybody. I am not attempting to convince you that Bradley Beal playing that way last night and them finding a way to get Bradley Beal to play that way moving forward is going to be the solution to all of the Suns' problems. That it's going to fix everything, and then all of a sudden this team will go on a magical run and they will be relevant and they can avoid the play-in tournament. I am not trying to sell you that story. I'm not trying to sell you those magic beans here on the show today. But I am saying that it would look a lot different. That it would probably be a lot more fun to watch. That those games that we say the team has to have, like the two in Portland, like tomorrow night's game against the Utah Jazz, you'd probably feel a little more confident knowing that you could get that version of Bradley Beal. And he came off the bench and did that last night, right? We have been long concerned on this show of how to find that consistency from Bradley Beal off the bench. Going from being a starter for a majority, if not all of his NBA career, to now, for this stretch of time, being a bench player. That's a hard thing to do to find your flow. Last night, Bradley Beal had his flow. How do the Suns find pockets of time where they can let Bradley Beal be Bradley Beal? When you have Kevin Durant and you have Devin Booker, how do you find the space and the time and the pockets of time in the game to let Bradley Beal lead the offense for 2 minutes, for 4 minutes? Can you artificially find some segments of time where you sit both Durant and Booker and maybe let Beal lead a group for a little bit? Because he didn't do that last night against the Charlotte Hornets. He didn't do it last night against the Washington Wizards. He didn't do that last night against the Brooklyn Nets, the Utah Jazz. He did it against the best team in the Western Conference. And so this is where coaching becomes important. You've got to find a way to artificially create that environment when Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are both healthy and available for this team. You have to find a way to say, you know what? I might sit both Book and Durant for 2 minutes, for 3 minutes, and give Beal an extended run to see, hey, can maybe he find something? Could he get hot here and help us? And I know you want to have one of those two guys on the floor at all time, but you saw what Bradley Beal looked like last night. And so maybe you can't find 6 minutes or 8 minutes where you do that. Can you find 2 minutes at the end of a half where you do it? Can you find 2 minutes in the middle of the second quarter where maybe you try to find some energy from your team and you say, hey, Brad, here you go. Here's your group. Go ahead. Lead the charge. The straw that stirs the drink for the Phoenix Suns is always going to be Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. But after what I saw last night, can you find a way to let Bradley Beal be Bradley Beal? He's going to play somewhere around the 30-minute mark every night. Can you find me 3 minutes where Bradley Beal can be that Bradley Beal? And he can lead a group and be the focal point of the offense? Because if Devin Booker or Kevin Durant are on the floor with him, and especially those stretches of time where all three of them are on the floor together, he's always going to defer. And he looked like a different basketball player last night, being able to play freely. And so with the way this team is designed, you're not going to be able to do it for large stretches. But all I'm asking for is, can you find a way to find 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes? And if it's successful and it starts to work, maybe you try to give him some run. And you know what? That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world with the schedule that this team has in the second half if you can artificially find time during a game where Kevin Durant doesn't have to play nearly 40 minutes a night, where you can find some extra rest for Devin Booker. So I hope Coach Bud saw that first half from Bradley Beal, where he, in the second quarter, led the team back, allowed them to grow a lead, and he was the lead dog. He can be that guy. He can't be that guy with Durant and Booker. He's always going to defer. So find this. It's a 48-minute basketball game. Find a small little window of 3 minutes where Bradley Beal can be Bradley Beal. And it's going to be dictated by the game flow, right? But you can't tell me that it's impossible to find that time, because I thought Bradley Beal looked like a different basketball player in the first half last night. And so to me, that is one of the good things that comes out of this game, only if the Suns are able to capitalize on it. If we just go back to the way things were when Durant's back and Beal's out there with one, I don't think you're going to see that version of Bradley Beal. I just don't.